The ship from the Explorer. Team moved slowly across the dark waters of the eastern Atlantic. On board stood David, a young weather officer sent by the government. His mission was simple but dangerous. Spend 1 full year on Holland Island and collect weather data. The crew gave him food, water, and supplies enough for 12 long months. After days of travel, they finally reached Holland Island. But the moment their feet touched the ground, an uneasy silence wrapped around them. There were no birds, no sound of life, nothing. Only a small house and a tall lighthouse standing like lonely guards in the wind. Inside the house, the belongings of the previous officer, Robert, lay scattered. Clothes on one side, tools on another. But Robert himself was gone. The captain and David exchanged a troubled look. Something was wrong. Very wrong. They hurried toward the lighthouse. But when they arrived, their eyes widened. The entrance was blocked with thick wooden planks, nailed tightly as if someone wanted to trap something or protect themselves from something outside. They knocked several times, but no reply came. The captain pushed the door with all his strength until it burst open. Inside sat a man in the corner, Gruner. His face was pale, his eyes tired. When the captain asked about Robert, Gruner slowly lifted his head and said in a low voice, "He's dead." He walked into the sea, and he never returned. The air felt heavier after those words. David felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The captain turned to him and said quietly, "If you want to return with us right now, say it. This place doesn't feel safe." But David refused. He feared that if he went back without the weather data, he would lose his position and be considered a failure. So the captain handed him a pistol and warned him to be careful. The crew left the island again, and David stood alone on the silent, empty land. That night, while setting up the house, David found a diary under the bed. It was Robert's. He opened it slowly and began to read. The pages were filled with strange sketches, creatures with twisted limbs, glowing eyes, shadows that did not look human. Some parts of the diary were scratched out, as if someone was trying to hide secrets too dark to read. Between the pages, David found a picture of Robert's wife. And for a moment, he wondered what Robert had felt spending a whole year alone in this cursed place. David kept reading as the night grew colder. His eyes became heavy, and finally, sleep pulled him in. The house was quiet, the island still. But something out there was awake, watching, waiting. Early the next morning, David began collecting weather data. But the moment he reached the shore, his steps froze. The rocks. They were arranged in a strange, unnatural pattern. David thought maybe Gruner did all this. He ignored the feeling and continued his work. While checking the area through his binoculars, he looked toward the lighthouse and saw a shadowy figure pacing back and forth on the top. Suddenly, the figure disappeared. David focused again, but the person was gone. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it was just my imagination." That night, David was busy with his work when someone knocked on the door. He thought, "It must be Gruner." David called out to him, but no one answered. He picked up his lantern and slowly walked toward the door. Then he heard a strange sound, a sound that didn't belong to any human. He stepped closer and saw a horrifying sight, a long twisted hand sliding in from under the door. Trying to get inside, David's heart pounded. He stepped back, trembling, and hid in the corner. The creature searched for him, peeking through a crack in the drawer. When it saw David hiding, it rushed toward him. The creature tried to attack, but David, desperate to survive, stabbed it in the eye with a knife. The creature screamed and fled into the darkness, but David knew it could return at any time. At that moment, he realized the truth. Everything written in the old diary about the creature was real. The next morning, when David stepped outside, he noticed something chilling. Footprints, but they weren't human. They were large, misshapen, and strange. They led toward the ocean, and then disappeared. Now David understood everything. He realized why Gruner had placed wooden planks all around the lighthouse. It was for protection. David thought to himself, "If I stay in this house, that creature could attack me at any time." Terrified, he ran toward the lighthouse. He banged on the door with desperation, shouting, "Gruner, open the door! Please, let me in!" But Gruner didn't respond at first. Finally, from above, Gruner shouted back, "You should have left with the boat. You shouldn't be here." He didn't want David anywhere near. To make sure, Groner poured water from above to push him away. David now had to protect himself. He began nailing wooden boards over all the windows. He covered every opening with planks. Then, near the front door, he placed old papers and books, soaked them with oil, and set them on fire, hoping the flames would scare off the creature if it returned. But that night, David would discover something he hadn't known. By chance, he found an old trunk hidden in the house, and inside it was a rifle. For the first time, David felt a little hope. Maybe, just maybe, he had a chance to survive. The evening fell and darkness took over. A strange silence filled the air. David's heart began to beat faster. Fear was slowly creeping in. He held his rifle tightly and stood silently in the corner of the room. Suddenly, a noise. He carefully peeked through the window toward the ocean, and what he saw shook him. Not just one, but many creatures were rising from the water, and they were all heading straight toward him. Soon they reached the house and began slamming into the door, trying to break it down. David didn't wait. He started firing his rifle again and again. A few of the creatures dropped. He thought the sound of gunfire might scare them off. But instead, the creatures became even angrier after seeing their own fall. Then came his backup plan. He lit the pile of papers and books outside the door. The fire rose quickly. As the flames grew, the creatures panicked. One by one, they turned back and fled into the sea. But now the fire had spread to the house itself. David rushed to put it out, but the house was made of wood. The flames climbed the walls. The door caught fire, then the windows, and soon the entire house was burning. David wrapped himself in a thick blanket and ran through the fire to save himself. He escaped, barely. Coughing and burned, he hid behind a large rock near the lighthouse. Blood dripped from his wounded arm. He had been hit during the fight. Then heavy rain began to pour. The fire slowly died out. But by dawn, it was too late. His house was gone, completely burned. Now, if David wanted to survive, he had no choice but to seek shelter in the lighthouse. He gripped his rifle and waited, hiding behind the stone, watching closely and waiting for Groner to come down to the water. The next morning, as Groner came down to fetch water, David silently followed him from behind. But suddenly, one of the strange creatures with Groner attacked. David reacted fast. He pushed the creature to the ground and aimed his rifle. Just as he was about to fire, Groner shouted, "Wait, don't shoot! He's my helper!" Startled, David lowered his weapon. He used the moment to his advantage and said, "If you want this creature to live, you must let me stay in the lighthouse. If not, I'll end it right here." Groner cornered agreed. Later that day, David brought his supplies, food, tools, and everything he had to the lighthouse. By evening, they had settled in. That night, for the first time, both of them slept in peace. The next morning, something strange happened. The creature came to David and gently licked his wounded arm. And then the wound began to heal. David stared in disbelief. "What kind of being is this?" "This is no ordinary creature. This is something beyond science. Maybe even magic." A wild idea came to David's mind. "If we can show this creature and its powers to the world, we could become rich and famous." But Groner had no interest in fame or fortune. He just looked away, silent.